The date is May 28th, 1453. Inside the greatest cathedral in the world, the Hagia Sophia, the air is thick with incense and the smell of fear. For the first time in centuries, the church is full, but the people aren't praying for salvation. They are praying for a quick death. Side by side, kneeling on the cold marble, are men who have hated each other for generations. Catholic Italians and Orthodox Greeks, soldiers and nuns, merchants and beggars. They are singing the Kyrie eleison, Lord, have mercy. Outside the thick walls of the city, the silence is even more terrifying. An army of 100,000 men is waiting in the dark. Their campfires stretch from horizon to horizon, a sea of orange light surrounding the city like lava. They are waiting for the sun to rise, because when it does, the Middle Ages will end. For 1,123 years, the Roman Empire has stood on this spot. It has survived plagues, crusades, and civil wars. It has been the lighthouse of civilization while Europe slept in the dark. But tonight, the lighthouse is running out of oil. By tomorrow night, the streets will run red. The emperor will be gone, and the name of the city will change forever. If you think that history is just a list of dates, you are wrong. History is the sound of a stone wall cracking. It is the smell of gunpowder replacing the smell of incense. It is the moment when an entire world disappears overnight. Now let's go to the walls, because the cannon is loaded and the fuse is lit. To understand the tragedy of 1453, you have to understand the city. Constantinople was built to be the capital of the world. It sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. It was protected by the Theodosian walls, a triple-layered defensive system that was considered the greatest engineering feat of the ancient world. No army had ever breached them, but by 1453, Constantinople was a ghost. It wasn't a city anymore. It was a graveyard with a pulse. The population had shrunk from 1 million people to less than 50,000. The great palaces were falling apart. Fields of wheat were growing inside the city walls. The Byzantine Empire, which once ruled from Italy to Syria, was now just this one city. It was a head without a body, and the man wearing the crown was Constantine XI. He is one of history's great tragic figures. He wasn't a bad ruler. He was brave, he was smart, and he was beloved. But he had inherited a corpse. He had no money. He had no army, only 7,000 soldiers to defend 14 miles of walls. He was fighting against a tidal wave with a bucket, and the tidal wave had a name. Sultan Mehmed II was 21 years old. To the Christian world, he was a mystery. They thought he was a naive boy. They called him unproven. They were fatally wrong. Mehmed was a prodigy. He spoke 6 languages. He studied the history of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. And he had one obsession. He called Constantinople the Red Apple. He believed it was his destiny to pick it. While the Byzantines were arguing about theology, Mehmed was studying ballistics. While the Europeans were playing politics, Mehmed was building a fleet. He didn't just want to conquer the city, he wanted to break the deadlock of history. He knew why previous sieges had failed. The walls were too strong, so he decided to change the rules of the game. He didn't build a taller ladder. He built a bigger gun. This is where the story turns into a technological thriller. A few months before the siege, a Hungarian engineer named Urban came to Constantinople. He offered to build the emperor a cannon that could save the city. Constantine XI couldn't afford to pay him. He couldn't even afford to feed him. So Urban left. He walked straight into the camp of the Sultan. Mehmed asked him, "Can you build me a cannon that can smash the walls of Babylon?" Urban said yes. But he needed money, tons of bronze, endless supplies of charcoal and saltpeter. Mehmed opened his treasury, built it. 3 months later, Urban unveiled the basilica. It was a monster. It was 27 feet long. The barrel was 30 inches wide. It fired a stone ball that weighed 1,200 pounds. It was so heavy that 60 oxen and 200 men were needed just to move it. It could only be fired 7 times a day because the barrel would get so hot it would crack. This was the atomic bomb of the 15th century. When Mehmed dragged this gun to the walls of Constantinople, the defenders looked down and realized the truth. Their 1,000-year-old walls, the walls that had stopped Attila the Hun, were obsolete. On April 6th, the first shot was fired. The sound was so loud it reportedly caused pregnant women in the city to faint. The stone ball smashed into the Theodosian walls and turned the ancient limestone into dust. The age of the castle was over. The age of artillery had begun. But the city held. For 6 weeks, the 7,000 defenders fought like lions. They repaired the walls at night with wood and earth. They repelled wave after wave of Ottoman attacks. The Byzantine defense relied on one crucial geographic advantage: the Golden Horn. The Golden Horn was the harbor on the north side of the city. If the Ottoman navy could get in there, they could attack the weak sea walls, but they couldn't get in. The Byzantines had stretched a massive iron chain across the mouth of the harbor. Huge wooden logs linked by iron rings, floating on the water. No ship could pass. Mehmed looked at the chain. He looked at his fleet sitting uselessly in the Bosphorus. And he did something insane. If he couldn't sail around the chain, he would walk over the land. In a single night, his engineers built a greased wooden road over the hill of Ghaja. It was steep, rough terrain. Using teams of oxen and thousands of soldiers, they literally dragged 70 warships out of the water, up the hill, and down the other side. Imagine the horror of the Byzantine defenders the next morning. They looked over the walls and saw the Ottoman fleet sitting inside the harbor. They hadn't sailed there. They had fallen from the sky. The city was now surrounded on all sides. The noose was tight. By May 28th, the defenders were exhausted. They were starving. The walls were full of holes. Mehmed sent a final offer. Surrender, and you can leave with your lives. Refuse, and the city is mine to loot. Constantine XI replied with words that should be carved in stone. To surrender the city is neither in my power nor in the power of anyone. Here, we are all prepared to die, and we shall do so without regret. That night, the emperor rode to the Hagia Sophia. It was the most emotional service in the history of Christianity. Orthodox priests and Catholic cardinals stood together. The emperor took communion. He asked forgiveness from his subjects. He wept. Then he put on his armor. He rode back to the shattered walls. He knew the sun was coming up. The assault began at 1:30 a.m. on May 29th. Mehmed sent the irregular troops first, the Bazouks. They were cannon fodder, sent to tire out the defenders. The Byzantines cut them down. Then came the Anatolian infantry, disciplined, heavily armed. The fighting was hand-to-hand on the ramparts. The bells of the city were ringing wildly, a frantic alarm that never stopped. But the walls held. Then just before dawn, Mehmed played his ace, the Janissaries. These were his elite guard, the best soldiers in the world. They marched in silence, perfectly in step, to the sound of drums. They hit the walls like a hammer. In the chaos, something tragic happened. A small gate, the Kirka Porta, had been left unlocked by a retreating Byzantine squad. It was a mistake, a tiny human error. The Ottomans saw the open door. They rushed in. Suddenly, the Ottoman flag was flying from a tower. A panic spread through the defenders. The city is taken! The city is taken! The Genoese commander, Giovanni Giustiniani, a giant of a man who had held the line for weeks, was shot in the chest. He was carried away. When the defenders saw their hero leave, their morale broke. The line collapsed, and Constantine XI, the last emperor of Rome, didn't run. He didn't try to escape to a ship. According to the accounts, he ripped off his imperial ornaments, his purple cloak, his jewels, so he wouldn't be recognized. He drew his sword. He shouted, "The city has fallen, and I am still alive." And then he charged into the ocean of Janissaries. He was never seen again. His body was never found. Some say he was buried in a mass grave. Some legends say he turned into marble and is sleeping under the city, waiting to wake up. But the truth is, he died as Rome died, fighting on his feet. By noon, the streets were quiet. Mehmed the Conqueror rode his white horse through the breach of St. Romanus. He rode straight to the Hagia Sophia. He dismounted. He picked up a handful of dust and poured it over his turban. An act of humility. He knew that even he, the conqueror of the world, was just mortal. He walked into the great church. He stared at the golden mosaics of Christ, and then he climbed onto the altar and recited the Muslim call to prayer. In that moment, Constantinople became Istanbul. The Roman Empire was dead. The scholars who fled the city took their books to Italy. They brought the knowledge of Plato and Aristotle to Florence and Venice. This injection of ancient wisdom helped spark the Renaissance. The fall of the city forced the Europeans to find a new trade route to India, since the East was now blocked. 39 years later, a man named Christopher Columbus would sail west to try and find it. The fall of Constantinople didn't just end an era, it created the modern world. The cannon that smashed the walls destroyed the feudal system. The refugees that fled the city built the modern intellect. The closure of the trade routes opened the Atlantic. We are living in the world that Mehmed and Constantine built on that Tuesday morning. So why does this story matter? Because it reminds us that nothing is permanent. For 1,000 years, the people of Constantinople thought their walls were invincible. They thought their civilization was eternal. They thought God was on their side. But history doesn't care about walls. It only cares about who has the bigger gun, the smarter strategy, and the will to survive. The walls of Istanbul are still there today. You can walk on them. You can touch the stone where the cannonballs hit. You can stand in the spot where the last Roman emperor drew his sword and vanished into legend. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear the bells ringing one last time. Thank you for watching. If you believe that we must remember the moments when the world changed, subscribe. We are documenting the fall so we can understand the rise.